and welcome to Season 3, Episode 2 of the Big at the Back podcast. We're back, pre-season is ramping up, transfer speculation is flying, great start. We're still very rusty, as you can tell. Matt, you absolute packer, how are you?
Well, there's so many ways that could go, isn't there? I'm not too bad, thanks. The season is very much like creeping up on us. We're like 2 weeks away now, and I do not feel ready for it. But yeah, summer is like flying by already. Before you know it, it'll be Christmas, and we'll all be wondering what the fuck we're doing with our lives. But yeah, how are you?
I'm good. You know, when we were out for dinner last Friday, your wife did try and tell us the amount of days left until Christmas, which is very, very concerning.
What makes it even worse? I was in a shop this week and they had like Christmas, what's the word I'm looking for? Crafty sort of, like crafts, like make your own Christmas decorations and stuff. And I was like, nah, not having that. I haven't even had my birthday yet.
It's the start of the summer holidays. Like, oh my God. Regardless, you say you're not ready for the new season. It is coming up very, very quickly. So
that's what she said.
No, it's not. She's never said that to you. So we are going to have this podcast to try and get ourselves ready. This is going to be part one of a two-parter. We're going to, in this part, go through the first 10 teams in the Premier League alphabetically and give our FPL thoughts and pick out our top 3 assets from each team. So that's going to be Arsenal to Fulham, Liverpool to Wolves is going to be next week at some point when you're back from Benidorm.
Oh, yeah, I'm not ready for that either. But that's if I survive.
Yeah, let's see if Matt can get away from his completely unprepared life. And let's dive straight in. So the first team we've got to talk about is the Premier League runners-up last season, Arsenal.
Do I have to talk about Arsenal?
I'm afraid you do, because Declan Rice is...
It still hurts. It hurts.
At least he didn't go to Chelsea.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. Like, it still pains me, but it's obviously a great signing for them. It's only going to improve their chances of doing something and winning something, in my opinion. But I am obviously very biased.
Well, I'll tell you what, this isn't a football podcast. This is an FPL podcast. So the signing we should be talking about is Kai.
No. Just no.
New signing, Kai Havertz, 7.5 million midfielder on Fantasy Premier League, and he's just completely unownable.
The only thing I will say is that it's great that he's a midfielder, because if he was a striker, it would be even worse. But if we're talking Arsenal assets and FPL and midfielders, he's like at least 4th choice.
I would argue 5th. So in terms of who we want to look at from FPL, I think you've got a really interesting case with Arsenal. So the standout best pick by far is Bukayo Saka. I think last season he petered off towards the end, but he was phenomenal for the vast majority of the season, especially at the beginning. I think he is the obvious shoe-in for your first choice pick.
He's the most obvious, isn't he? Like he was pipped to their top scorer in the end by Odegaard last season. But like you say, he just by the end of the season, he just looked like someone that had played far too much football. With that World Cup in the middle of the season, he'd played pretty much every game for Arsenal in league and a lot of the cups as well. So yeah, it's if he can find that form that he had in the first probably 2/3 of last season, it's a no-brainer.
What are your thoughts on Odegaard? Because in that new look Arsenal midfield, where you'd probably expect Rice, Havertz, and Odegaard, of those, you'd expect Havertz to probably be the one that moves forward a little bit more. So does that impact Odegaard's minutes, or what's your perspective on Odegaard from an FPL standpoint?
It's a tricky one for me because I say this as someone who has paid no attention to anything in pre-season so far. So take this all with a pinch of salt. It's all going to depend how those, like you say, those midfield 3 sort of interact. Is Rice going to be the one pivot on his own, and hopefully allow them both to play with a little bit more freedom? or are you asking Rice to do too much then? But yeah, if one of them's going to come deeper, it's going to be Ødegaard, surely. Which obviously means he's going to have less goal involvements. So that really does sort of devalue him a little bit. The other thing you got to remember with Arsenal is Champions League football. So there is that rotation risk and how they manage those minutes for all of these attacking players.
Yeah, they've got wonderful fixtures at the start of the season. The first one being Nottingham Forest at home. So you couldn't ask for better. However, with their players and with their assets, I think it is a bit more clear-cut than people are making out. Saka is the obvious one, but I think Ødegaard and Havertz are probably actually going to take away from each other. Therefore, the correct answer is you just go neither. Martinelli.
No, Havertz is not taken away from anyone.
Martinelli and Trossard are still probably going to be taking minutes off each other. Again, the correct answer is you don't go for any of them. So I think you're looking at other areas of the pitch. Saka is the obvious midfield standout, but another Arsenal player who's in my team at the moment is the person that would have been by far and away their top scoring defender last season if he hadn't had that massive injury, and that's Saliba, who is now back for Arsenal. Their defense fell apart without him, but with him, it was really good, and he's got a brilliant song. What do you think?
Yeah, he seems to be a fantastic pick. And like you say, before his injury last season, he was definitely their standout defensive player. Again, they've got more depth in this position now with Timber coming in from Ajax. I'm really looking forward to how they do like some sort of song around Kesha.
It's done.
It's going down.
It's been done.
Yeah, but I'm looking forward to exactly how they make it. So, like, imagine they could have the two best songs for central defenders in the league with Timber and Saliba. So that's all I care about.
It's got to be worth something. It's got
to be worth some points somewhere.
3 other defensive picks I think worth chatting about. In defence first, actually, Ben White and Gabriel. Now, Ben White coming in at 5.5, got 150 points last season, or 156 points, sorry. Unexpectedly picking up bonus points and assists on a semi-regular basis. What's your read on Ben White for this season at a 5.5 price bracket?
Well, him slotting into that right back position really helped him. Like you can see him if he slots into that role again this season. There's no reason to think that he can't carry on that form if he's got 2 good centre halves alongside him and a decent goalkeeper behind him as well. So there's always a chance of clean sheets. And when you get those, I am a little bit. There's definitely worse picks out there. So, and he's at a 5.5. That's not a bad price point for me. It's a good tempting price point.
I think if he'd have come in at 5, I'd be on him. But at 5.5, I think versus Luke Shaw, versus Reece James, versus Chilwell, I just think that price bracket makes it very difficult to own Ben White, especially.
I don't know what you're talking about with Luke Shaw, mate. They lost to Wrexham last night.
Especially with the other Arsenal defender, Gabriel, coming in at 5.0.
Yeah, that's the only sort of sticking point for me. And you could even argue, and I know it's less probably nailed on, but with Zinchenko at 5, if he gets consistent minutes on the left, but it's all depends who slots into that position, really.
Zinchenko is just all style and no substance. Like, he had 1 less start than Saliba last year. Zinchenko at left back and Saliba as centre back, and Saliba got 18 more points than him in FPL. Assuming
quick maths.
Even if you're looking at 6 points a game to 3 clean sheets, that's Saliba is still by far and away the better option, I think, at 5.0. What's your perspective on Aaron Ramsdale? I know it's 5.0 for a keeper, but he's reliable. Are you tempted?
I just think with Arsenal's assets, I don't know that a goalkeeper's the way to go. I would argue that you're better off with a defender, a midfielder, and a striker. That is what I think. But I don't think it's a bad pick at all.
Let's talk about the striker then, because the only one you can realistically consider is Eddie Nketiah.
Yeah, definitely.
So Gabriel,
I'll tell you what, though, everyone's watching Balogun to see where he ends up, aren't they? Because he racked up the goals in France last season. So if he goes out to another Premier League side, people are definitely keeping an eye on him.
he's not taken Gabriel Jesus' place in the starting lineup, though. Absolutely no chance of.
No, that's what I mean. But there's a lot of rumours that he goes out to another Premier League side, either on loan or outright. So he could be a tempter.
Interesting. I mean, let's talk about the main asset though, Gabriel Jesus. Now he's in a lot of draft teams right now. Loads and loads of people are putting him in as the second striker after Mr. Erling Haaland. For me, at 8 million, he just misses too many chances, and he's a really frustrating own. That being said, last season, 29 starts or 24 starts, 11 goals, and 7 assists. There's really not bad returns at all, but he won't be fit for the whole season. I feel like I should be more tempted than I am. What's your read on him?
It does make you wonder if they're going to bring someone else in, because obviously I know they probably don't need it with the amount of rotation they've got. Like they can stick Trossard up there, they can stick Martinelli up there. They've obviously got Nketiah in the background as well. So, but obviously he is carrying a lot of the weight, the goals on his shoulders. He started the season really well, and again it was another player who was hampered by injuries. I actually like him as a shout. I think 8 million is a good price if he can stay fit, and that is the big if.
The other option, of course, is Nicolas Pepe.
Yep, definitely. Yeah, he is straight in my team.
We spent a bit of time in Arsenal, but that's because they're a really interesting FPL team. If you're going to pick three, who would your three be?
For me, it would be Saka, Jesus, and probably just Saliba.
I'd have Saka, Saliba, Jesus in that order. Jesus is still high because
Declan Rice.
Because the striking slots are really, it's hard to come by great players in them at the moment. So I think he's probably the second, or no, actually the third best in his price bracket, because Callum the Truth Wilson and Darwin Nunez, 5 out of 5 shots on target in preseason, are both in the same kind of price bracket. So swiftly moving on to the next team, which is Aston Villa. Now, Aston Villa, really interesting team. Tricky start to the season with an away match against Newcastle. What's your perspective on Aston Villa and their assets? Because after the Newcastle game, they've got Everton at home and Burnley away.
Yeah, and they're obviously two pretty decent fixtures. I'd say they've got like a good, like an average to good start of the season with Newcastle and Liverpool in their first 4. But in amongst that, there are some good fixtures. And it is worth remembering that they had such a good run after Emery came in. They were right up there. I think they'd have been in the top 4 just based on when on the post-Emery era. So
they dropped off. That wasn't true by the end of the season because they dropped off pretty hard at the end.
Yeah, they did. And the thing is, and again, it's going to be another case of how does this club get on with European football this season? Because they've got that to look forward to as well. Obviously, sometimes it can hamper sides. I feel like they've made a couple of good signings as well. Obviously, Pau Torres coming in is a big one for them at the back. Emery's got these connections, and he is a great manager for a club like Aston Villa because he can sign good players. Obviously, the main one is probably that people are going to be looking at, and it's another 8 million striker, and it's Ollie Watkins.
Yeah, I like Watkins' price. I think that's enough to make me think, he could be worth that, but he could also be a waste of money. I think Ollie Watkins has been priced really, really well by FPL this year, because if he hits the promise of form that he was showing at times last season, then I think that's a great price. 15 goals and 8 assists in the Premier League last season. Whereas if he goes for a bit of a dry spell and drops off, then you've got to be moving him on. I also really like gone onto the radar a bit, but they were the ones that picked up Yuri Tielemans from
Yeah.
Really, really potentially good signing. Defensively, I really like that Pau Torres, and I think actually he makes Tyrone Mings and Martinez both better options. But the defender I think is really interesting is Cash, Matty Cash for Aston Villa. Now, there's a bit more competition in the fullback slots, but what's your opinion?
Again, I mean, it looks like so they've got Cash, they've got Moreno, they've got Dean. Are you sure I can't tempt you with Luca Dean?
He's on my FPL ban list.
But he's so much fun, Tom.
We've spoken on this podcast many times about Luca Digne being the most and least fun FPL asset to own. We can't go into that again.
But yeah, so I don't know. I think Cash is probably the best of their choices at fullback. Moreno is a strange one. I thought like he either looked like he was going to be a world beater in one game, and then the next game he looked like he was Luca Dean 2.0. So maybe he is just like a regen of Luca Dean.
Perhaps.
Have you ever seen them on the same pitch? Because I haven't.
I can't say I have. No, that may be because they're both left backs, but I don't think that's
could be.
I don't think that's a good enough reason. So I'm not certain. But I actually, at the moment, have Pau Torres in my draft FPL team. I'll probably actually switch it out for Mings now I think about it. That seems to make a lot more sense because Tyrone Mings is going to be starting as captain. But I think...
Well, look at you. You've made some changes to your team since we last spoke. You've actually logged in.
Yeah, I know. It's a horrible experience.
Disgraceful, Tom.
Then
you've disappointed
in
me.
goal, we'll always remember, was it 2-3 seasons ago that Martinez was just unbelievable? So it was two seasons back. So 2020, 2021. He got 186 points as a goalkeeper. That was clean sheets, penalty saves, 10 points, 15 points every single game week. Didn't quite hit that the last 2 seasons. So, but Martinez, what's your take on it?
I don't love it at 5. I just, with the season they had last year, plus European football this year, I can see them being a little bit more susceptible to conceding goals. We'll always have that season 2 seasons ago, though, and we will always love him for it. And we'll always love him for using the Golden Glove trophy as a penis.
We'll also always love his game against Arsenal last season.
Yes.
In terms of the top 3 then for Aston Villa, I would start us off with Watkins. I think he is... Oh, actually, no. I start off with Mings, Tyrone Mings. Then I'd go Ollie Watkins. Then I would go Pau Torres as my 3 picks from Aston Villa.
Yeah, I feel like you've forgotten someone.
Are you about to say Phil Coutinho?
Yes.
Give me your picks.
Do you know who I am actually very, not tempted by, but I'm interested to see how they do, and that's Moussa Diaby, who they've just signed as well. So he could be an interesting one at a 6.5 in that midfield slot. If he hits the ground running, that is one person I'll be keeping an eye on. But my 3 would be Watkins, Mings, and I'm going to throw in Tielemans as well, just because why not? I want to be a little bit different.
I think you'd go Wendy. Oh, maybe Tielemans is more sure at starts. I feel like the next one we can move through pretty quickly because it's Bournemouth. Now, Bournemouth last season, only 2 players over 100 points, and that was Solanke and Billing. However, the only viable pick, as we know from last season, is Norberto Moreira Neto.
I thought you were going to say Solanke, but because you know how I love Solanke.
The problem with Solanke is he's a fun player to watch, but he's been priced out this season. He should not be a 6.5 for a Bournemouth player is far, far, far too much. It's completely unreasonable. So that's a hard no from me. I don't think he's ownable in FPL, at least until he starts proving he can be consistent. Defensively, you don't really want to go near Bournemouth. You also don't want to be there for Solanke, which only really leaves the midfield. Now, I hate to say it, but Billing looks like the only one that's viable. Although Kluivert at 5 million could be a bit of a bargain. New signing, looks very promising. bit wild that he's gone to Bournemouth of all places, but who knows what he can do there.
Yeah, I feel like it just feels like there must be something there that he's either not very good or he's not got a great attitude or something like that. Because he just feels like someone that shouldn't be playing for Bournemouth. Whether it's just name, I don't know, that we sort of think. But he was at Roma, who obviously are a good side, managed by Mourinho. Maybe they'd have fallen out. Who knows? Mourinho loves having a falling out, doesn't he?
He does indeed. If you were going to pick a top 3 from Bournemouth, I think we can rifle through this pretty quickly.
Probably, Billing, probably up there because you're getting something. Neto as maybe a rotation keeper, and then I guess Solanke. I don't know.
I'd have Kluivert over Solanke, but
yeah, maybe like the real question here is who cares?
That's a more valid question. So we shall move on to Brentford. Now, Brentford, a very, very interesting one. And for me, this is dependent.
Ivan Toney.
This is
shit.
On whether David Raya moves on. Because it looks like and I haven't really seen anything since, but it looks like he's more likely now to be staying at Brentford. So they've signed Flecken in goal, who are 4.5 if he's a starting keeper for Brentford. Brilliant pick. However, Raya, if he's still there at 5.0, I think is probably too much. Got plenty of great options. Visa will be playing in that central striker role with Mbemo, also in that forward line. Mbemo on penalties as well. He's in a lot of teams. Ben Mee being there as well in defence. I think there's a lot of good players at Brentford and a lot of good fantasy football picks. What's your take on their players at the moment?
I'm just trying to see if I can find odds on Raya's next club, but I can't. So he's 50-1 to win the Golden Glove, though. So that's just something for you. Mm-hmm. Yeah, if he stays, he's obviously a great shout. They've got a fairly good start to the season. Spurs, and who knows what Spurs are going to be like. Their owner might even be in jail by the time the season kicks off. And then Fulham, Palace and Bournemouth as their next 3 after that, which is a fairly decent opening run of fixtures. But like you say, it's with that Toney suspension for the first half of the season, it really opens up Viscera and Mbemo, and they're going to be definitely the most highly owned Brentford players going into the start of the season, I'd imagine.
Yeah, you've got to think so. Mbemo, especially being on penalties as well. Visser was very good, though, in the back end of last season. Got 111 points over the course of the season and 111 points from 7 goals scored and 4 assists. 11 returns for 111 points. Now, if that isn't beautiful numerology? I'm not sure. If that isn't pretty numbers, then what is, Matt?
I mean, I just don't know. Like what you said just made no sense. But yeah, like you say, obviously Flecken's in. It's a strange one, isn't it? Because I think everyone just assumed once they'd signed him that Raya was off. But now, obviously, with Spurs going elsewhere in their hunt for a keeper, obviously United have signed Onana. So there's not really the market out there for anyone to go in and sign him now. So I can't really see him moving on.
Most likely club to sign him is Bayern Munich at the moment, apparently.
There you go. And I don't know if that'll be.
But they're linked with everyone, aren't they? No, they're linked with absolutely everyone in the transfer window.
True, yeah.
Tottenham is still there, but as are Chelsea, surprisingly, that could be a bit of a surprise. I think Raya is still a good option. They've got Henry and Pinnock, both 4.5 million defenders, that are both just great options for rotation in a team at the moment. I think pick one is a drop of a hat. They both got 112 FPL points last season.
Yeah, and obviously you always got to include me in that as well, captain, leader, legend. And they signed Nathan Collins from Wolves in quite a big move as well. And as someone at Wolves, he never really struck me as like the great sort of defender, but I have absolute faith in Brentford's recruitment policy, so he could be one that could potentially prove us wrong.
I'm not sure, because Brentford over the last few years haven't done that well with recruitment. A lot of their players are actually ones that were bought 3 or 4 years ago. So they've really started tripping and tumbling recently in the past few years or so. Whereas before they were nailed on. Now, since they've been a Premier League club for a while, the recruitment has fallen flat. If you look at Brentford transfers in over the last... So Nathan Collins, Kevin Shader, Flecken, Finn Stevens. This is all from recently. Nathan Collins was a record signing.
Christian Eriksen the season before last.
Yeah, Christian Eriksen the season before last. But they've been hit and miss typically with Brentford. Brilliant team, well managed. You should probably own them in FPL for at least some of the season. If you were to pick 3 assets, go.
Boimo is obviously number 1 for me.
Mm-hmm.
Vissa probably 2, and then David Raya.
Ooh. I think taking prices into consideration, I'd go Umbremo, Pinnock, and Henry as the top 3. And Pinnock and Henry, I think, are as good as each other. So Vissa would be after that, and I think he's a fine option. Now, shall we talk about Brighton? The most talked about team in FPL last year. Lost McAllister, probably going to lose Caicedo. What?
Yeah, but McAllister's shit. He's not gone anywhere good, so
we'll wait and see about that. However, they've still got some very, very enticing players. And in the second draft of an FPL that I put together, I have 2 Brighton players. So, if you're looking at Brighton...
Oh, can I guess?
Yes, go.
Dennis Undav.
Nailed it. Next.
No. Inciso? Damn, I thought you might go for a cheap option. Mitoma.
Yes. Very obvious one.
And I really hope it's not a Stupinian.
It is a Stupinian.
It is a Stupinian. I just thought that was going to be too obvious. I wanted you to go somewhere a little bit more rogue.
Yeah. It would be fun if I'd have gone for like
Danny Welbeck,
Billy Gilmore or something like that. But no.
When did they sign João Pedro?
I don't know. Like Brighton just do things, don't they? Oh yeah, he was
34 million euros apparently.
Yeah, he was brought in. It was agreed, I think, January last year, but only completed the move recently, or something.
The other question about Brighton is who's going to play in goal, because obviously they had the rotation last year. They signed Verbruggen from Anderlecht for about 20 million euros.
I still think it's Steele. I think that's probably his place to lose.
But do you go out and sign a 20 million euro goalkeeper if you're not going to play them?
Probably not, actually. So you'd imagine probably him. So 4.5 million. I think Brighton goalkeepers, you can wait and see, though. I think Estupinian is priced correctly on FPL. I don't think he's overpriced. I don't think he's underpriced. I would have liked to see him at 4.5, but completely get why he's a 5 million player. I think the one that's really underpriced for me, I think, is Mitoma. 6.5 million. And for such large periods of last season, he was the player to own. He was phenomenal. He had 24 starts and got 138 FPL points, 7 goals scored, 9 assists, and 24 starts. I think once he gets a full season under him, he'll be brilliant. And for expected goals, it felt like he should have been getting like 10 goals a game. His XG in 24 starts was 8.29, which suggests he's performing under where he should be. But I think he was a really, really top-class player, and he is going to be in so many teams from the start of the season.
Yeah, I completely agree. The only thing with Brighton, and this, as I'm saying this, I'm already about to backtrack on it, is what they do if Caicedo leaves. but they'll just pull someone else that they've got in the youth ranks somewhere who'll be the next big player, and they'll be sold for £80 million next summer.
They've already signed Dahoud from Dortmund, who is essentially going to fit the McAllister bill. If Caicedo leaves, Billy Gilmore will just become and go. They'll pull something out. I'm not worried about Brighton at all in terms of the way they play. So I think they're still very ownable. Luton at home, first fixture as well. My three, the other one to talk about is Solly March, who is going to be back from injury. He might take a little bit of time to get into match fitness, though. And he was a peripheral expected goal underachiever last season, having an expected goal. Oh, to be fair, he didn't underachieve it by that much according to the stats, but realistically, he was underachieving in most games.
I refuse to get on the March hype bus. I think he had a purple patch. He's not a great footballer.
I disagree, but I don't think he's a good finisher. So that's why I won't be getting on the March hype. James Milner?
Nope, next.
That's your Caicedo replacement. James Milner, 39.
No, it's not.
So I am going to put as my top three, Mitoma as one, Estupinian as number two, and Evan Ferguson as number three. The only reason Ferguson's number three is because Welbeck has been good in pre-season. So I think he's more likely than Ferguson to get the nod for the opening games. By the end of the season, Ferguson will have broken him, but I don't think he will immediately.
Fair enough. For me, it's Mitoma, it's Estupinian, and it's Enciso.
Yes.
5.5 as a midfielder now, because he was a forward last season. I think that's a real tempter for me.
Interesting. Well, next one to go through, and I feel like we can rifle through this because I'm not convinced I know anything, is the Weghorst team, Burnley. So
I want to own Vincent Kompany. Can I have him?
I would love to own Vincent Kompany. What makes Burnley interesting is that they've got 4 million defenders. That's the only reason you'd invest in Burnley, realistically, and for Weghorst banter. So Bayer for Burnley played right back all season last season. Only got one attacking return. Or was it left back? I don't know. But only got one attacking return all season. So he's not going to get you attacking returns, but he's going to get 2 points on the bench every week, which is what you want from a 4 million bench warmer. So for me, he's the only one in consideration from Burnley. Unless, do you have any different perspectives? Nathan Redmond?
I just want to point out they have had the best transfer announcements this season.
They've been incredible, haven't they? Their social media team is on point.
Give them a pay rise. But no, the interesting one they have, they just signed James Trafford, the keeper from Man City, who performed the heroics for the England under-19s in the Euros, saving a penalty in the 94th or 95th minute of the final to win the tournament. And I don't actually know how much he is. Let's have a look.
4.5.
4.5. So yeah, that's unfortunate. If he was a 4, he would probably be a great shout as your second keeper.
Agreed. I think there aren't 3 players for me in Burnley. So do you want to have a crack?
Weghorst, and Jay Rodriguez.
Brilliant. Okay, let's move on. Now, this is a club that we want to talk about because it's Romelu Lukaku's club. Let's not go there. Let's not dive in. Lukaku is not part of this conversation. So, Chelsea. What do we think about Chelsea?
Where do you even begin with this fucking football club?
You start at the goalkeeper, and then you say, it's Kepa, no thank you, and you move on to the next. Kepa at 5 million is a no-go. Considering the other players you could get in that position at 5 million, Kepa is the bottom of that list for me. Then you move on to defenders, and you realise that none of them got any points last season. Thiago Silva, who's about 80 now, was their top scoring defender in FPL. Realistically, the ones you want to be looking at are Chilwell and James, both at 5.5, and we know both can be explosive, but both coming back off injury-ridden seasons. Nope. The one I think in their defence is Lewis Colwill, who is wanted desperately by Liverpool and every other club, won't go there. But he did really well for Brighton last season on loan. And it looks like with Fofana's latest injury, there's a good chance he could get a shot in the Chelsea lineup.
Fofana just can't catch a break, can he? The poor guy.
Yeah, poor guy. Crying into his hundreds of millions that he's earned from doing nothing.
It's hard life.
But I'm still not convinced by any of the defenders. Midfield, you're going to hate me for it. I think there's a case for Raheem Sterling.
You're wrong. I don't hate you for that. I just hate you for existing.
Just so needless.
But no, I don't know. I just find Chelsea as a whole uninvestable. If you'd have said Sterling at the start of last season at 7 million, I'd have bitten your hand off for it. Coming in from City and just his pedigree in the league. But I don't know. I can't get excited about any of them. The only ones, and I'm jumping ahead to the strikers here, are Nkunku and Jackson, who have both come in for big money this summer. You've got to think one of them is going to score some goals because they need to. I
mean, Nkunku typically played as a number 10. He's got a great goal scoring record, was really, really good for Leipzig last season, alongside Szoboszlai, who's gone to Liverpool. But he's typically playing as a shadow striker. And Jackson is still very early. Like he's not really proven himself in any big leagues. Can I not tempt you with an Armando Broja?
Nope. Because as much as I'd love to say yes, it's just not going to happen. Just looking at Jackson, 12 goals and 5 assists in La Liga last season in 34 games. It's not horrendous, but yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how he settles in because it just feels like anyone that comes into Chelsea at the moment is cursed.
Yeah, and what you can do with Chelsea is actually wait. Their first game is Liverpool at home. Their second game is West Ham away. So you could wait till after those fixtures. Then you invest in them for Luton at home, Nottingham Forest at home, Bournemouth away. So you can wait until game week 3 before you go in. And by then, you should have an idea of who's starting in those wing positions. Because at that point, you could be looking at Sterling. You could be looking at Madueke. You could be looking at Mudryk. Maybe even Callum Hudson-Odoi is going to come back into the fray. Once we know who's starting in those 4 positions for Chelsea, we can look at investing from game week 3 onwards.
We also forgot to mention with Burnley, we already have our first blank of the season in game week 2.
Burnley beat Luton.
Which I'm sure people were really banking on.
Does mean a Weghorst double game week, though.
Come on! But
I'm
yeah,
ready to be held again.
The stadium is not going to be ready in time, so to the surprise of absolutely no one.
Chelsea, if you're looking at 3 players, I think for me, I'm going Sterling, Chilwell, James.
I am going James, Chilwell, and Nkunku.
I like it. Bold. Let's look at Crystal Palace then, who has said goodbye to Wilf Zaha. Elise rumoured to be chatting to both Chelsea and Man City right now. If you're a Palace fan, you're a bit upset right now, right?
Yeah, it's that obviously Zaha's been their talisman for years. Other than his brief and less than fruitful spell at Man United, he has been their outstanding performer for God knows how long. So losing him is obviously huge. The potential to lose Elise is also very damaging for them. But it does mean that probably Eze is the standout for them now.
Yeah, Eze is the only... Well, and the defence, actually, I still think is worthwhile. If Johnston is going to be confirmed as a starting keeper, I think Crystal Palace are very good at keeping clean sheets at against teams below them. Problem is, after quite a nice opening fixture against Sheffield United, they play Arsenal at home, Brentford away. And then it doesn't get much better with Villa away and Man U away coming up soon after that. So I think you can almost wait and see with Crystal Palace defenders and goalkeepers. If you're going to go in, then you probably go into the midfield and forward line with your boy, Mateta, looking good in pre-season.
It's it's a tough one as well with them because at the moment, as things stand, they've made one signing and that's Jefferson Lerma on a free transfer from Bournemouth. So nothing's really changed. All that's happened is they've lost their probably best player.
Yeah.
They've obviously confirmed as well that Hodgson's going to be in charge for the season. I don't know if that makes them more or less investable. I'd probably argue less because I know he had a good period when he came in and kept them up, but I just don't think it's a good long-term strategy because what's he really realistically going to be there for? A year?
No, it's mad, isn't it? Talk of Decore going as well. So I think that's a bit of a club in crisis at the moment.
Yeah.
If I'm going to pick 3 players, I think Edouard is there because he's cheap. Eze is first. Edouard as a 5.5 million forward is cheap. And then you're looking at Mitchell, I think, over Guehi for potential attacking returns, but you could flip a coin. But I think that's where I am at with Palace. Any objections? Anything different?
No, I think it's one of the 2 strikers. It's Eze and it's one of the 2 defenders you mentioned as well for me. So I just, no one's going to be rushing to bring them in, are they?
Well, talk of teams people are going to be rushing in. The next is Everton. And Everton with the new arrival of the young talisman, Ashley Young. Tell me.
Ashley Young, the only player in FPL to have been a forward, a midfielder, and a defender at some point in his career.
Soon he'll be goalkeeper and he'll have completed the FPL set.
It's they're going to have such an old back line, aren't they? It's going to be so funny.
But also, they're going to be fine this season because Sean Dyche.
Yeah, I mean, you look at someone like a James Tarkowski, he's probably just going to get points this season. He's going to be like just plodding along, picking up the odd clean sheet. He'll get the odd goal as well. He'll get probably get some bonus points thrown in. So,
yeah, I think Tarkowski, not only is he their best defender, but he's their best attacker as well. So, especially
hang on.
About to talk to me about Neil Maupay.
You know he's got 2 games in him and they're both against West Ham. So just get him in for those 2 and he'll probably be their top scorer.
Calvert-Lewin, an interesting price at 6 million. If he can stay fit for more than a game and a half, I think that could be tempting later down the line.
Yeah, that is a huge if though, isn't it?
Yeah. And well, if you look at 3 of Everton's first 4 games are Fulham at home, Wolves at home, Sheffield United away. So you've got to think if you own him from the off, it could be a risk that really pays off.
I mean, yeah, potentially. They brought Dan Juma in as well, who obviously rejected them in January. So he's finally signed. I mean, he even said in his interview, like the managerial situation at the time, Lampard was sort of half out the door. You can't blame him for walking away at that point. So he might come in and hit the ground running, but I don't know.
Can I tempt you by a Dwight McNeil or Alex Iwobi?
No.
Worth noting that Jordan Pickford got 124 points in FPL last season. Not bad for a team that was awful the whole season. And has 3 of his 4 opening fixtures is looking good. As a 4.5 goalkeeper, I think he's tempting. And I hate the man.
Yeah, there's he is pretty consistent. You know what you're getting with Jordan Pickford, don't you? So you can definitely do worse.
Yeah, you're getting shot. I mean, I think he is worth a shout as a 4.5, but
T-Rex arms.
T-Rex arms indeed. Okay, so
here's an interesting one for you.
Go.
Do you think we start to see the redemption arc for Dele Alli now after everything that's happened with him?
I think you can't watch that documentary and not hope for it. That being said, in a Sean Dyche team, a player like Dele Alli will really, really struggle to get through.
I wonder, and it's not exactly particularly insightful because it's been quite well documented. Could you see him ending up with Poch at Chelsea?
Yeah, you absolutely can. You have the thing about Poch wanting to call Dele Alli the other day. Yeah, I can see that happening 100%. I'd be interested in that. And Dele Alli at Chelsea, just because if he can pick up where he left off, he was wonderful for us for a while.
Especially when
It's
it
a
looks like
sticky one.
Conor Gallagher's going to be on his way out the door potentially. So
Yeah, 50 million they're asking for from West Ham. Be interesting to see if he goes. Everton, if I'm picking three, I'm going McNeil. Yeah, no, I'm not going McNeil. I'm going Tarkowski, then Pickford, then Calvert-Lewin as my top three for Everton.
I'm going Tarkowski, Pickford, and just because I think it's funny, Ashley Young.
Moving on to the final team in this first half of the Premier League FPL analysis. And we have Fulham Football Club. Now, what the fuck is going on with Mitrovic?
This whole thing.
At least we know Marco
hilarious.
Silva is staying, so Fulham will be fine this season. Marco Silva is a top 10 Premier League manager. Fulham will be fine. They're making moves in the transfer market. They've bought Raul Jimenez, which I love. How many players transfer for their FPL price? 5.5 million. Raul Jimenez cost Fulham, and 5.5 million he costs an FPL. We're talking about numerology earlier with the 111. This is symmetry, baby. Raul Jimenez is football.
Maybe that's what they did when they were going through. How much should we bid? So they were like, I don't know. What's this FPL price? Let's go for that. It's the whole Mitrovic situation, and Mitrovic obviously throwing his toys out the pram. Then you get Tony Khan coming out and saying that they can get away with anything, including murder. And you're like, Jesus Christ, Tony, calm down.
That guy is so much cocaine all of the time.
Oh, mate, yeah, he's in the wrestling business, so he's got to be on something. It's just hilarious, isn't it? There is absolutely no surprise to anyone that Mitrovic is a mercenary.
And I don't think that price was unreasonable. You know, he's got in the last 3 seasons, 110 goals for them or something like that. I mean, he's been really, really strong for them. And I don't know why they would expect anything less than 50 million for a proven top-class striker. That being said, he's unownable on FPL, but it could open the door to Vinicius. Potentially.
Yeah, I mean, Vinicius and Jimenez, they're both sort of that backup. And at 5 and 5.5, they're both very cheap as a third striker.
Yeah, very much so. Midfielders as well. I've got a lot of love for Andreas Pereira. 5.5 million, 123 FPL points last season. Will be on penalties if Mitrovic isn't there. There's a case there.
Yeah, definitely. There is no arguing that there is a good case there. He was everyone's. It was pretty much in everyone's team all of last season. He faded away a bit towards the end, but I think that was indicative of Fulham's performances at the end as well. When they basically secured safety, it was they took the foot off the gas a little bit and they were on the beach. But another person worth mentioning is someone who had quite a good season is Bernd Leno, 142 points for a 4.5 million goalkeeper.
He's in my team at the moment. Was the main reason Fulham did as well as they did defensively last season, and he would regularly pick up save points. It went really under the radar, but that's only 10 points less than Ramsdale got, 10 points less than what Raya got, both of whom are 5 million. I think Leno is the best goalkeeping option in the game right now.
Oh, no. What's my name?
Disagree, but we'll speak about that next. I'm sorry, I'm going to go on it now. Right, you can absolutely see. First game of the season, game 1. Man United 1, Wolves 0, Luke Shaw assist, Rashford goal. 75 minutes, Luke Shaw comes off. 3 bonus points, clean sheet, 12 points locked up. Diego Costa, or whoever the fudge plays for Wolves now, goes and scores an equaliser on the 88th minute. 1-1. Onana 2 points, Luke Shaw 12. That's going to happen for the majority of the season. I believe Luke Shaw will rack up points. I don't think Onana will to nearly the same extent. So I think Bernd Leno is the best keeper in the league to own on FPL for the start of the season. Pitching my flag here.
I got you easy there, didn't I? All I had to mention was a Man United player, and then watch you go.
What, Man U? I thought we were talking about Everton's own honour. But yes, you got me. And I also was very complimentary about Luke Shaw as well.
Yeah, you were, to be fair. Yeah. But yeah, that is 10 teams done and dusted.
So, Fulham, what's your top 3?
I think Leno, then Pereira, and then one of the strikers as a third. So I'm going to go for Jimenez.
Yeah, I think Vinicius would be mine, but I agree with the order. Cool. That is the top 10 teams done.
That's the top 10. That's the season. Like, Man City aren't even getting top 10 next season. You heard it here first, people.
You're a Man United. Like this is football. Football is life. Go Richmond! Woo! Right, we will be back at some point next week to follow up with the next 10 teams. Looking
if I'm alive,
if Matt's alive, and if I'm alive as well. Looking Liverpool to Wolves. Hopefully, we'll have a bit more clarity over all the transfer stuff going on by then as well. You can words losing. Oh, it's the end of the podcast. This always happens. Why do you let me speak at the end? Right.
Why don't you speak at any point?
You can find us on Twitter at @BigAtTheBack.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Higgins92, and Tom is at TomMadden92. Don't forget to, if you are watching this on YouTube, like, subscribe, all that good shit. We do appreciate anything. And if you fancy it, put a comment down about who your top picks from these 10 sides are this season as well.
Looking forward to seeing everyone put Havertz. Right, thank you everyone, and we will see you next week.